All right, good afternoon. Are glad that you could join us today for the third out of four Thoughtful Thursdays. My name is Steve McKinley with the State 4-H office at Purdue University, and I work in the areas of leadership and volunteerism, and also work to help coordinate the 4-H civic engagement team, and that's the team that's going to be presenting this session to you today on defining your legacy. So we're looking forward to that here in just a few moments. A couple of things just to help us make sure we're all on the same page today. A couple of things that will help you and help us is if you can keep your microphone muted when you're not talking. That's going to help make sure there's no feedback or echoing. If you're having some connection difficulties, feel free to turn off your video. Otherwise, it's fine to have it on. If you do have questions, please ask those in the chat box. We'd be happy to try to answer that information for you. And as well, if you can remember that we're being respectful and courteous to everyone so that we can hear each other, and this program is also being monitored and recorded. The link that I just put into the chat will give you a link to a Qualtrics survey that allows us to know that you're here. So if you have a moment to type that link into your browser and fill out a few questions about yourself, that would help us also. Many of you joining the call today are part of 4-H already, and welcome. We're glad that you're here, but we also have some guests that may not have been in 4-H before. So I want to do just a brief overview of what the 4-H program is. It is a nationally based program that's offered to students in grades 3 through 12. Nationwide, there's over 6 million participants, and we're very excited to be a part of that program here in Indiana. Offers a number of different hands-on activities for our students to participate in, learning skills that you're going to use throughout your life, including some of those that you're going to learn today. We do coordinate Indiana 4-H from Purdue University, and it's led by a 4-H extension educator in each of our Indiana counties, and they have support from hundreds of 4-H volunteers that make that program possible. You can choose from about 60 or so different subject areas, or we call them projects in 4-H, and learn about those different things and do different activities that will allow you to gain some skills in those areas. If you'd like to learn more about what we do in the 4-H program in Indiana, you can visit our Indiana 4-H website and check that out for some more information. As I mentioned, this is the third out of four of our Thoughtful Thursdays that the 4-H Civic Engagement team is putting together. We've talked about conflict resolution. Last week we talked about whether or not it was ethical. Today again is define your legacy, and next week we're going to talk about patriotism. Again, this is from 3 until 4 each day. The link there from our 4-H volunteer page of our website is for the 4-H Civic Engagement resources, and those are available to you at any time. It's my pleasure at this point to welcome and introduce to you our three presenters for today. These are all individuals, again, from our 4-H Civic Engagement team. First, we have Brian Howell, the Tipton County 4-H Extension educator. Kyle Weaver from Switzerland County is the 4-H educator, and Cathy Boerste from Perry County, also the 4-H Extension educator. And with that, Brian, I think it's your turn to take it off, so I will let you go. Thank you so much.
I'm requesting remote control. There we go. All right. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking some time out to do this. As Steve said, I'm Brian Howell, the 4-H educator in Tipton County, and I'm trying to click. So the first part of our lesson that we're going to be talking about is leaving our legacy. There we go. So what is a legacy? By definition, it was kind of hard to find a definition for a legacy, but it is something that you leave behind or passed on from someone in the past. That can be, as we think, and as the illustrations show, we've got old pictures of old family heirlooms and things like that. Also, just our looks. These three ladies that are in the middle. We've got grandma, mother, and daughter, I'm assuming, or 3 generations, and they all kind of look alike. So, that can be part of a legacy. Also, the picture of the adult passing on to the child, whether it's the plant, but what we do to our earth, what we do with our families, things like that. It can be distant, it can be recent. Maybe you have developed a legacy with a classmate that you haven't seen for a couple of months, but perhaps something that you did that you didn't even realize on that last day you were together and didn't even realize it was going to be the last day you were together, has had an impact on that person that you were in class with, or saw in the lunchroom, or passed in the parking lot on your way to your car, to your bus on that last day of school. That might have left a legacy to them, something that you passed on to them, and maybe that's something that they've thought of, hopefully something positive that they've thought of during this time, maybe when they were having some down days. I know I've had some of those. So some examples of a legacy, an inheritance. You know, as your family, as your grandparents or whoever passes away, they can leave their legacy and inheritance, the things that they've worked on their life to try to acquire some of those physical things or tangible things, they can leave that on. A quality or a reputation, you know, maybe there are some people that you might know that, you know, there's certain maybe names that you know in your community that like, oh yeah, that's, you know, oh, he's a Smith, they're a great family, you know, or they have a really good reputation of being good philanthropists or good business people or whatever, or just farmers or whatever. There's reputations or there's qualities. Can also work the other end of things too, but we won't dwell on that too much. Family is also a legacy. An occupation. One occupation I think of is funeral homes. How many times do funeral homes stay in the same family? It's passed on from generation to generation. Again, farming is much the same way. You know, I have friends where they're second or third generation doctors or something like that. So an occupation is a legacy that can be left behind. And as we said, those are pretty major or pretty big things, but also little things, a feeling or a lesson. You know, I still think about my third grade teacher and the legacy and the lessons that she imprinted on me a long time ago. And a feeling, like I said, maybe there was a student that you passed that last day at school and you gave them a smile or a pat on the back, and they were having a down day. Maybe you didn't realize it. And that's something that, especially over the last 9 weeks, has been able to maybe hold on to them or something that they've thought of. So those are all legacies. Taking a minute. So anybody else have anything? Am I allowed to ask Steve, anybody else to have anything to add to that or an example of somebody can think of something that maybe a feeling that a classmate or somebody has left with them that has left a lasting imprint on them? Don't forget to unmute yourself. Oops. I don't know why I just went back to the screen. Okay. So, all right. So has an act of kindness ever had a lasting impact on you? I can think of lots of those. You know, just a smile or a pat on the back that somebody has given me. You know, during the 4-H fair, as we're kind of stressed out sometimes as educators, maybe you've noticed your educator kind of stressed out, or your club leader or a parent or somebody, and, you know, stop and say, hey, you're doing a great job. And that can really boost us up. And I think Cathy and Kyle, and I see Dustin and Jenny on there as well, can probably agree to that. So also in club meetings, this is an activity that we can do at club meetings. It's kind of hard to do right now because we don't know each other. And we're all spread out across the state and possibly, as Steve was saying, the country. But what are some things, some warm fuzzies that you can leave to your club members or your classmates or your siblings or other people in your home or wherever? Kind words and compliments give you a warm fuzzy. You know, somebody says something like, I like your hair today. Does that make you feel a little bit more confident that day? You know, it makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Can you give warm fuzzies to encourage other club members? Maybe you see somebody that is trying really hard. Maybe they're a little nervous getting in front of the group for their demonstration, but they did it, and you can encourage them to keep doing that and maybe give them some pointers from your experiences. Or maybe you have somebody that is just sitting in the shadows that seems nervous or afraid to get out there and interact with the other club members. And you can go and say, you know what, I know that you have this talent, or I've seen you do this thing that we might be able to do a club activity based on that. And so that's something that can encourage them to get more involved or maybe help build their confidence or that act of kindness to them. So, so warm fuzzies. Activity that we can do at a club meeting, at an officer retreat, maybe a workshop, something. You can do this with club meetings. You can do this at a student council meeting. You know, if maybe there's just a time where you're with the group and you've got a lot of, maybe it's great to do when everything's good, but also maybe there's a moment where maybe your group is struggling a little bit. You might say, you know what, we're going to take a time out and we're going to pass on some warm fuzzies to each other. Maybe there's people in that room that aren't getting along very well. So pass out some Post-it notes and say, all right, everybody has to write a warm fuzzy for someone in this room. So what you do is you write another person's name on there. So I'm going to say, I'm going to pick on Cathy because I know Cathy probably best in here. And so I'm going to write there, I'm going to write Cathy Boerste. It says my connection is unstable. I'm going to hide my video just to be safe on that. So I'm going to write a Post-it to Cathy, and I'm going to say, Cathy, you are a very kind individual. You often give a lot of advice, and I appreciate the experience and your willingness to share your experience as a colleague. And so post them up on the wall, and hopefully at the end of that meeting, those people can collect the warm fuzzies that have been written about them throughout the meeting. Another thing that I've seen do is, we've done it for a mixer with junior leaders, is to just give out Post-it notes and write it, and they stick it on everybody's back. And they can take a moment and see what else has been posted on their backs, and just take a moment with those. So is that my last? Can't remember if I have one more slide. So yeah, so there's not really a good way to do this activity in this setting. So sorry about that. Previous slide. Okay, so some things to think about. How does it feel when you're giving compliments to others? Do you find that easy to do? Is it difficult to do? Probably it's easier to do for some other people than it is for some. So maybe you do have a frustration with another person. You might have to dig deep in your soul, but there's always something that you can compliment someone on. How do you feel to receive compliments from others? I'll open that up. How does it feel to receive compliments from others? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Brian, I'll kind of break the ice, and while some of them may be thinking a little bit, I think giving someone a compliment is one of the best gifts you can give a person when it is sincere and it's specific. And so often we think we have to have money to give people something, but these are the things that last forever and can really make a difference in somebody's life. And it can be something as simple as, I really appreciate the way that you are always smiling when you come into the meeting. Or, I appreciate your leadership and you're willing to speak up. It can be something very, very simple, but perhaps the person really needed to pick me up on that date, or maybe it's a matter of they never realized that about themselves. So I bet every one of us can think of something that we could compliment every single member of our club, group, or whatever. I would also just add that when I have done this activity as the facilitator or the leader that's leading it, I kind of think through it ahead of time, and I make sure that I have something that I can say about every person, because you want to make sure that every person in your group has something nice said about them. And not that anybody in our groups would mean to exclude, but maybe they just don't know a new person, and that new person might not get a compliment if you don't make sure that it happens. So if you're facilitating it, just make sure everybody's getting something good said about them.
Wonder if anybody else noticed Cathy's expression when Brian was giving her a warm fuzzy. What did we notice?
I sure did.
What'd you see, Kyle?
Oh, I just see the smile, and the face lights up every time.
Uh-huh. And that's what happens, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
that we're able to do that for each other. Brian, another example that I would share is earlier today, actually, this happened to me. Had one of our coworkers that just sent me a 2-line little message that said thanks, and went on a little bit there, but just that helped. I mean, that definitely helped. Some days are stronger than others, better than others for us, and you never know when that pick-me-up is really going to be a helpful type thing.
Getty wrote in the chat, it says it feels like an epic gamer moment. So I'm not a gamer, but I think that's kind of like, a relief or kind of that high that you can get. So good to know. Anyone else have anything to say on that? Either what it feels like to give compliments, or how does it feel to receive compliments from others? Personally, I've had to learn to say thank you when someone gives me a compliment, because I'm not always the best at receiving that. I'll try to discount it, or, you know, I think it was Sam Johnson in Allen County just says, take that and go with it. So Molly Henry has her hand raised. Go ahead, Molly, unmute yourself.
Sometimes when I get a compliment, I blush sometimes, because it's kind of just, you're not expecting a compliment and then they just say it, and then you kind of just like, oh, thank you, you're very nice.
Yeah, it's not always the easiest thing to take and accept. So, yeah.
That's a good kind of blushing right there.
Right, right. So, have you ever discovered something? Ellie, go ahead. Ellie Henry has her hand raised as well.
I know I love giving people compliments, because like, you don't know what's going on in their lives or what kind of day or week they've been having. And so just being able to tell them something nice just to make their day a little bit brighter always brings me a lot of joy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can tell the voice, I don't know you, but I can hear the joy in your voice. Yeah, I can, that comes through so pretty easily. So have you ever discovered something about yourself, maybe that others have noticed, but you hadn't, through compliments that they've given you? And maybe that gave you a boost. Like, I never thought of myself maybe filling that role in a club, or thought of myself being able to do that, but that gave you that boost to maybe pursue that more, or excel in that a little bit more.
I think they're all being very modest, and that's something that we're all taught to do, you know, not brag on ourselves. And I think that's why sometimes it feels uncomfortable, and maybe we do blush or get a little embarrassed when somebody recognizes us. I think it just means we need to be more conscious and do it more often.
Yep. It's kind of minor, but you know, sometimes in group activities, people, oh, we need a recorder for this, and you know, somebody said, well, you do a pretty good job of summing things up. And so a lot of times, if we're in a group activity, all right, I'll do that. That can be my role, and not something I really recognized about myself, but other people did, and maybe they're just trying to pass the buck and think I'm a sucker for doing that for the group. But that's kind of one thing that I've, you know, been willing to do. So, and then where else could you use this type of activity? Yes, I'm sorry.
Ryan, before they answer that, that's okay. I got a response here from Getty that someone told me I had the best taste in music in my friend group, and it was the best compliment ever.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Very good.
So,
yeah.
Oh, and also looked like a Rush fan, and that was a good compliment. So, hey, you know, that's awesome. I'm not sure what that looks like, but that's good. And I think sometimes even our interests, we recognize we have those interests, but when others recognize that in us, that makes it even more special.
Right. So, yeah, sometimes I'm, you know, kind of shy. Some of my interests are kind of not the norm, I guess. And so I'm like, I don't really want to share that. But ask about it, and that's really cool. Then you feel more confident going for that. So where else could you use this type of activity? You know, I gave some examples, but where else could you use this type of activity where you're leaving compliments and leaving warm fuzzies for others? And Ellie, I don't know if your hand is still raised from the last time or not. And for whatever reason, my chat bar is gone. Or like my menu, my toolbar on the bottom is gone. There we go. Steve, I'm admitting people in the room. I hope that's all right. All right. But, yeah, so as I said, we need to wrap this up because Kyle and Cathy both have things, lessons as well. But some places that we could use this activity, like we said, a club meeting, junior leader meeting, maybe a church youth group, student council meeting. And you know what, maybe if there's a class or something that you're in and things are frustrated or tensions are high, maybe there's a time you can ask your teacher or your leader and say, you know what, let's take a break. Let's regroup a little bit. Let's try to find some of the positive again. and take 10 minutes and do this type of activity where maybe we can spread some goodwill. And if you're trying to accomplish something that's being stopped because of the atmosphere in the room, or everybody's frustrated with each other, this can completely shift that attitude moving forward by taking a moment and focusing on some positive things. So.
Brian,
Brian, I
could I
want to
just
bet that
add
this.
one more?
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to add that maybe within our own families, this would be a great activity. You know, we've all just spent a couple of months, give or take, some time with each other. We're probably, if you have siblings, you may be getting on each other's nerves, maybe even with your parents. But if you really stop and think, I bet there's also some things that you truly appreciate about each person that lives under the same roof with you. So I would challenge each of you to do this activity in the next few days within your family.
And I think too, a lot of times we think about this as an activity for teens or younger. I think we might be able to do this with some adult groups that we're working with right now too. Never know.
I wasn't speaking out of experience just a moment ago. So, all right. I think I'm going to pass it on to, I don't remember who's next, but
I think I'm up next, Brian.
Okay. And then don't forget to hit your view options and take control.
All right.
So up there, yeah.
See if I can advance to the next slide here, maybe. Okay, so thank you, Brian, for that. We're going to kind of do some self-reflection in the next section of our lesson today. And it went too far. Did I click it too many times? There we go. So we're going to talk about some what we call a letter to yourself. And if you happen to have a piece of paper and a pen handy, we'd certainly appreciate you taking the time to write this for us. We're talking about self-journaling. Now, journaling is an excellent way of thinking about your legacy, thinking about your leadership ability, thinking about where I am today, where I'd like to be in the future. I'm sure that all of you are in different stages of your leadership. You're in different stages of growth and different stages of where you are in your 4-H clubs and maybe other student organizations. So it's important to think about where we are and where we'd like to go. And I'm going to kind of talk about where we are today a little bit. And the instructions are pretty simple. It just talks about write a letter to yourself about your legacy. And it says, write it as if you were going to read it several years from now. In this letter, you are the sender and you are the receiver. You may consider writing this if you were doing it into a confidential journal to be read by only you. And I think we're doing an excellent job on discussion. So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to take about 10, 15, maybe 30 seconds. And I want you to think about your legacy today. And you should think about this and what is my legacy that I truly have, not what I'd like it to be, but what do I truly have as my legacy today? What is my role? What is my niche, maybe my 4-H club? And I want you to think about that for the next 15 or 30 seconds. Then we're going to come back as a group and hopefully you'll be able to share some of those things with us. Okay, thank you. I know it was kind of a long 15 seconds, but does anybody would like to share what you believe your legacy is today? Would anybody like to share that in the group? How do you see yourself today? Well, I can get it started. I see my legacy today as a community leader and someone that is a resource for not only Purdue Extension, but agriculture and youth education leadership as a whole. So how does anybody else see themselves today?
Kyle, I think one of the things that I would see right now would be my ability to listen and ask some questions that help other people to be able to help solve some problems or solve some issues that they might be facing at the moment, and hopefully be that good listening ear. Hey, we have one here that says the legacy is being a horse trainer for one of our participants. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So do you have a legacy in your 4-H club or something of that nature?
How about drinking lots of chocolate milk? Does that count too?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
That's my kid's legacy.
Yeah. All right, Molly Henry, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Molly.
Yeah, so for my family, we are actually, well, I'm a fourth generation of 4-Hers. So that's kind of just important to keep the 4-H family going, and, you know, me and my siblings to raise our children and continue our 4-H legacy.
Very good. Thank you, Molly. Excellent. Anybody else want to offer anything? Great discussion. So as we think about, if my thing works, Steve, we need to go one more, maybe. There we go. So as we think about where we think we are, we also need to think about where we'd like to be. And I want you to think about this personal reflection. As we start thinking about reflecting, I want you to think about what legacy do you want to leave today? It's not something you're going to leave in the future. We'll talk about that, I think, in a few more slides. But I want you to think about what legacy do you want to leave today? And that may be the same thing as what you just reflected on the first slide. But if it's a little bit different, I want you to start thinking about what do you want to pass on to those that follow you today. So we know that some of the things that you are, notice for your legacy today, and is that going to be something that you change or something you may not change? But what legacy do you want to leave? So does anybody have any discussion on what legacy they'd like to leave? It could be different. It could be the same as what we just talked about. So I'll give you an example, a personal example. For me, I want my legacy today to be that of a good father. I think leaving the legacy of my children will be an excellent thing to do. So hopefully that's what's happening. My kids are older now, so hopefully they've passed on a few things that I've taught them over the years. Anybody else have anything about their own personal reflection for where they are today?
So to be a legacy of being a Rush fan, Cathy is good Rush fan, and that's awesome.
Oh, very
So
good.
that's
very good.
well. I think for me, I hope to be that when I leave my legacy, I've been seen as a positive role model for my peers and for young people that I work with.
Very good. Great.
Done.
Excellent discussion. Yes. So
I hope I'm not done yet.
Cathy. So Cathy, I believe I will turn the next portion over to you.
Okay, thank you. Does that mean, help me, am I advancing my slides or somebody else doing that for me? Ah, there they are. It's magic.
You go to view options and remote control.
Yes, I saw it, but I think Steve helped me out there. So going a little bit deeper into the discussion that Kyle started, if we look at the wellness perspective of our legacy, we really leave multiple legacies in our life. And the list is there, you know, intellectual, physical, emotional, social, occupational, spiritual. Those are all important parts of our lives. And I think it's important that we kind of define some of those. And I'm guessing that our participants here can all help me out with that. Of what kind of things might be an intellectual legacy that someone might leave? Either your own or somebody else. Would anyone like to leave a legacy of being known as being knowledgeable, one who likes to learn the facts and is maybe a really good student in school, maybe not, but they're known as one who is intellectual and likes to study and learn things? How about physical? What kind of physical legacy would either you or someone you know might want to attain? Everyone's kind of quiet today.
I always thought it'd be fun to be a really good basketball player.
There you go. That's a great one to attain. Or maybe being just being really physically fit. How about emotional? What would be a good emotional legacy?
I think being someone
So for me-
who, I was gonna say,
Go ahead, Brian.
being that person that your friends can go to for support. If they're having a bad day, they know that they can come to you and you'll either cheer them up or help them understand a little bit more about what's going on and help you think through things a little bit, I think would be a good emotional legacy. Hopefully we all have that friend that we can go to.
I agree.
Cathy had a couple of responses in the chat here that for a physical legacy, being a healthy role model, that's really important. And also
Great.
a sports player could be a good one. And perhaps also to be a really good guitar player, maybe even as good as Eddie Van Halen.
Okay. I think another emotional legacy might be the person who can stay calm even when they're really angry or upset. And maybe you know some people like that, or maybe you're like that. Social legacy. Might some of those be? What about being the life of the party, the one that everybody wants to invite to the party because you're the one who brings the fun? That might be a good social legacy. Occupational. What might be a job or an occupation that would be a really good legacy? We talked about some earlier.
I think Hope, she talked about being a horse trainer. That certainly would be one.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some band folks, so that's good. That can turn into an occupation.
And I'm glad to hear some of these, maybe not the occupations that we usually think of, because sometimes when you ask people about an occupational legacy, it's the things that either have money or prestige behind them that come to mind often. But I think being really good at whatever your passion is, you know, if you're good at cutting hair, boy, I could use your passion and that legacy right now. If you're really good at being the clerk in the grocery store who's upbeat and can check people out quickly and efficiently, what a great legacy to have. So the occupational one, I think, is really centered about being really good at whatever legitimate occupation that you have chosen. It's not
Cathy,
just the lawyers.
I'm sorry, when you're talking about the clerk, there's one of the greeters at the Noblesville Walmart that I loved to go on Saturday because I knew he'd usually be there, but he was just singing and dancing and welcome to Walmart. I love my job. I'm glad you're here. And just something that simple. He was a Walmart greeter, but was really good at it. And you know, sometimes cashiers would say, yeah, people talk about him all the time, but he was known for that. And he did a great job and loved his job. And yeah, as you were saying, maybe it's not the most prestigious job, but it's something that everybody that comes in that store is going to come in contact with.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. The one similar one that comes to my mind is when I go get my car washed, I always look forward to a certain guy being there because he just makes, he's always smiling, he's always happy. It doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees outside and you know the poor guy's been working all day long, but he makes everybody feel special and he does a super job when he's washing the car. And the last one is spiritual. And whether you belong to an organized religion or not, our spiritual legacy is important. It might be what we believe in as a higher power. It might be how we treat other people. all of those can be a part of our spiritual legacy. Anybody have something they want to add to that? So this is an activity that takes some time and thought outside of this. I hope that either we have this available to you, that you will have the PowerPoint, or perhaps Steve can send this to you, because most of the reflections today are ones that take more than just a few moments that we have while we're doing the live workshop. It's really something that you need to reflect upon on your own and write it down. Which kind of takes us into the next slide. Steve, if you can help me out. We want to reflect a little bit on our legacy at different points in our lives. We have an ultimate legacy whenever our end on this earth comes. That might be the legacy that people are talking about. But step by step along the way, we're leaving a legacy. And if you think of this as kind of a roadmap, it's kind of like you set the GPS before you're going to go somewhere. And you maybe it's a long journey, and it's going to take you several steps along the way. So the first part of the journey is, where do you see yourself in 1 year? That, for those of you who will still be in school next year, that might be something to think about, is how do you want your classmates to look at you and think about you at the end of next year? And these are all things that you will kind of need to reflect upon over time. But I'm just wondering if anybody's willing to share now. And we're in a real unprecedented time. So envision yourself a year from now. And how do you want people to think of you, remember you in this year that you will remember the rest of your life? We'll all remember the 2020 the rest of our lives. Anybody willing to share their 1 year legacy that they're trying to leave? Well, if this is putting you on the spot, which I know it is, I want you to keep this list, and we're just going to kind of talk through them, but this is something that you will need to, or we're asking you to reflect upon, kind of like Kyle was talking about the personal journal or the letter. If you write this down for yourself, you're going to have two purposes to it. One is, it's like setting your GPS. You have a route that you're going on. And you can change your mind. You know, maybe you're taking this trip, and all of a sudden you see some road signs along the way that show you that there's an opportunity, there's a landmark, there's something that you didn't even know existed, but hey, that looks really interesting. So I think I'm going to go down this path now and go see this landmark or this natural beauty of some kind that I didn't even know existed. And then you've kind of broadened your horizon. So as you then go back to your car and reset your GPS, maybe you want to look for some other sites similar to that. So you adjust your legacy as you reflect on it each time. But if you never set that GPS, or you never write these things down for yourself, how do you know when you've accomplished your goals? How do you know where you've gotten where you wanted to be? You know, you may get to 10 years down your life path and go, wow, I kind of wasted some time and energy, and I wish I had done. So this is something that I would say most people don't take the time to do. And it's not just young people, it's old people like me don't always take enough time to think and reflect where we want to be further down our life. Anyone want to share some of these ideas or other reflections? Do any of our participants, would you be willing to share, if you imagined yourself 10 years from now, what would you like for your life to look like?
I would have wanted to be out of college, moderately successful career-wise, have met a lot of people, traveled decently, and happy to look forward to my future.
That's a great legacy, Chandler. You've got a good setting on your GPS here.
Thank you.
Any idea on what you hope that career to be that you'd be willing to share?
I'm looking into certain things right now, like trade school, but I'm also thinking about like certain like forensic stuff, kind of borderline, a lot of different ideas.
You know, I think it's great that you have some ideas, but you're also willing to be flexible. And that's important, because as you start down this life path, there will be opportunities that don't exist right now, or you didn't know existed right now. And staying open to all those is really important. But if you don't have something in mind, it's kind of like saying, I want to go on vacation, but I have no idea where I'm going to go. So I'm just going to take off and start wandering. And at the end of the time, when you got to get back, it's kind of like, well, I really didn't see what I wanted to see or do what I wanted to do, because I didn't have a goal in mind. So goals are important. I think with that, I'm going to turn it back to Brian, who has a little activity for us.
Steve, can we go off of sharing your screen? Well, we can do that. Okay, so there's a little book. I have a 5-year-old, almost 5-year-old. And when Cathy and Kyle and I and Steve started working on this lesson, I pulled a book off of his shelf just randomly, and I thought this is perfect for this activity and talking about leaving a lesson. So it's called You're Here for a Reason. It's by Nancy Tillman. Maybe some of you have read this or read this as a child, but it is a children's book. So Steve, would you mind if we went out of, stop participant sharing. I just do that. And I don't know if you guys could hit speaker view on your screens to make it a little bit more, I see Cathy on there. I don't know why Cathy's the speaker right now, but I don't know how we change that. So, but I have.
You're showing up for me, Brian.
Okay, great.
On speaker view.
Okay, so but I'm going to be showing your the pictures and things, and the pictures are relevant to this. So it's a little book. So you're here for a reason. You certainly are. The world would be different without you by far. It's not for your hands or your eyes or your feet. The world like if not for your hands, your eyes, and your feet, the world like a puzzle would be incomplete. So the kite is very important. Okay. This is like kindergarten rug time in classroom. So even the smallest of things that you do blossom and multiply far beyond you. A kindness, for instance, may triple for days or set things in motion in different ways. It travels much further than you'll ever know. Under the treetops, same kite, mind you. Over the snow, till it's wandered. Hold on, sorry, just a minute. Sorry, somebody was at my back door. Till it's wandered and fluttered and floated and twirled, making things happen all over the world. So it started out as a kite, and the ribbons have gone other places and gotten different uses. You're here for a reason. It's totally true. You're part of a world that is counting on you. So don't be too worried if some days fall flat. Good things can happen even from that. Life can be tricky, there isn't a doubt. You'll skin your knees trying to figure it out. But life works together, the good and the bad, the silly and awful, the happy and sad. To paint a big picture we can't always see, a picture that needs you most definitely. Remember the next time that a day goes all wrong, And the bird's carrying the ball up in its mouth. I don't know if you saw that. Remember that next time the day goes all wrong, to somebody else, you will always be strong. And that ball that you lose or that kite you let go could make someone's day. You just never know. So she's got the ribbons from the kite and the ball in her hat, and the ball is the teeter-totter. You're here for a reason. If you think you're not, I would just say that perhaps you forgot. A piece of the world that's as precious and dear would surely be missing if you weren't here. If not for your smile and your laugh and your heart, this place we call home would be minus apart. Thank goodness you're here. Thank goodness times two. I can't imagine a world without you. So that's the end of that, but I thought that went really well with the lesson about the legacies and everything. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Brian. I think a lot of times we forget how much wisdom there is in little kids' books. Maybe we should all be rereading them.
So Cathy and Kyle and Brian, want to thank you for sharing today. That was pretty cool. Lots of good ideas and good discussion, and a good way to finish that up, Brian, with that book. So any questions for the group that we can answer before we move on? All right, if you think of some, go ahead and put those in the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself. We'll be happy to try to answer those. But as you're thinking about those, think also about some other things that are happening for students in your age category coming up here in the nenext few weeks. 4-H Civic Engagement Workshop is going to be happening June 10, 11, and 12. That's a Wednesday and Thursday afternoon from about 1 to 4, and then a Friday morning from about 9 until 11:30. We're going to be talking with some local and state government officials. We're going to have a chance to address some local community issues that you all identify and ask some questions of those government officials that they can hopefully help you think through how you can maybe resolve those or make them better in your home community. We're also going to talk about some international experiences. We got some folks coming that will be able to talk about things that they've done in different countries around the world, either for working and or for living. And so they'll be a part of our program on Friday morning. We're excited also for the State 4-H Junior Leader Conference. That's going to be June 16, 17, 18. That's a Tuesday through Thursday. We're going to be meeting from 3 until 6 p.m. each afternoon. A number of different things are going to happen that relate to your personal leadership skills, as well as some group activities that you'll be able to take back and use with other groups that you have in your communities. And Craig Tornquist is going to be our keynote speaker. He's a comedian that's going to be with us on Tuesday afternoon for about an hour, about 3:30 or so he'll start. And he's got lots of really good activities that are going to allow us to be engaged and interact, even though we're going to be virtual. And so we're looking forward to that. Also, we'll include a number of different activities that our planning team, our State Junior Leader Council, has put together that they'll be able to share with you. And then we also are going to have a networking event where there's going to be some business professionals there that are going to be interacting with you virtually to give you some tips on career prep, on helping you to think about maybe what type of career you'd like to have, and what are some really good points that you can include when you go into an interview or prepare a resume, those types of things. On that line later this afternoon at 5 o'clock, Michael Quaistus is going to be joining us. He is our 4-H Roundup speaker. He was with us yesterday afternoon. He'll be back again this afternoon or this evening at 5 o'clock. And he's focused today on job interview skills. And so I would encourage you to think about that. If you're interested in that connection information, send us a note and we'll be able to get that to you after the program today. Those of you thinking about college, thinking about Purdue at some point, perhaps in the future, there's a new program that's out there that you may have heard about. It's called the Purdue Fast Start Program. This allows Indiana students to to have some advanced credit entering college, which is pretty exciting. So you'll be able to take 5 to 10 free online courses and some CLEP exams. You'd be secured admission to Purdue University, and you'd earn up to a year's worth of Purdue credits for no cost. And that is a savings of about $21,000. So fairly important if that's something of interest to you and your family. And if you're interested in Purdue, the purdue.university/fast start link will get you more information about that program if you're interested there. As we wrap up today, a couple of reminders. Cathy mentioned that some of these files are out there and they are posted. They are on our civic engagement page on the 4-H website, and so you're able to use those at any time. The PowerPoint that you saw is also posted already, so that'll be there, and this recording is going to be there too, probably in the next day or so. But we really want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being with us. If you would take a moment to do the purdue.ag 4-H Thoughtful Thurs 2 survey, that's going to tell us what one thing you might have learned from today that you think you can use in the future. That would help us know how things went for you today. If you didn't have a chance to let us know you were here at the beginning, you can still do that one by doing the Thoughtful Thurs 1 survey, and that will give us information that we can use to follow up with you after the program is over. We do have the opportunity for one more of these programs. Jenny, you're going to be leading that one. Do you have any preview that you'd like to share with us? Not to put you on the spot, but surprise.
That's okay. So we'll be doing some fun activities related to patriotism and you. So we have some interactive activities. We're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. We prepared a Kahoot quiz for you to see how much you guys know from the citizenship tests that they have right now in the United States of America. As well as just some cool videos and some intriguing questions for you to ponder over. So we hope you'll join us, and it should be a lot of fun.
Great, Jenny. Thank you. Jenny and Steele will be with us with that one. And same connection link will get you that program next week. And that again is from 3 until 4 Eastern time next Thursday to wrap up our Thoughtful Thursday series. So again, Brian, Cathy, Kyle, thank you so much for today, for the program that you led us through. And thanks to everybody for joining us. Please take a moment to fill out that survey, and we hope to see you again next week. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, 4-Hers, for joining us.
Yes, thank you.